It has come to my attention that many people believe the internet is dead, that we all have to compromise ourselves for 30-second videos where ideas never go past the first level, or in many cases, people never get the idea across because they always jump from topic to topic. There's only one way we ever change that, and it's by starting ourselves to not tolerate that world, by expecting people to go further, by expecting people to read more than just the headline, read more than just the book. To those people that know me, you know that I really care about that. I've been writing on the internet for around 10 years almost. And during the time, I've always tried to take people further along the idea spectrum and not settle for this fake idea we have in the modern age of everyone's attention spans are getting shorter. That's a choice we make. It's a choice we make whether we tolerate a world where attention spans are getting shorter. So I'm going to try and change that by sharing my thoughts once in a while on topics I care about, um, unedited, 100%, including bringing my friends along for conversations that are valuable. And we follow the thread. It's not about one idea, it's not about multiple ideas, it's about layering on and having the conversation after the conversation, not still arguing if the original conversation made sense. To say another way, it's hey, I read this book and I want to debate if this book is true or whatever, but instead, what are the consequences of accepting the book as true and going further, assuming the book is the starting point? So, to start with, I'm going to try an example over here of how I look at the morality of socialized healthcare. A disclaimer is I probably don't believe this 6 months from now because my views on the world will change as the world changes around me. So assume this to be the starting point of my ideas, which are very preformed and not very clear. So, socialized healthcare. To begin understanding the idea of socialized healthcare, we first are going to start off with the idea of a freeloader. What is a freeloader in economics? In economics, a freeloader is somebody who doesn't contribute to a system but takes from it. Free rider. A free rider problem is a problem in economics where somebody doesn't contribute to a system but takes from it. Now, in socialized healthcare, we have an issue of basically people who don't care about their health, people who don't optimize their health the right way, and there's one version of it where the person doesn't know what the right thing to do, where people don't know that, like in India, this is a problem where people don't know that rice and carbs all the time is actually bad for them. So the conversation you need to have there isn't is very different than in other societies. People aren't aware that certain foods are just junk. So that's an education conversation. But there's another free rider problem, which is basically a lot of smart people who've convinced themselves that health is complicated and it's not super simple ideas that are the difference between if they're doing their health right or wrong. This is basically every fat rationalist who thinks that that the reason he's not that his fat is some thyroid issue, it's adipose tissue that's full of seed oils, it's it's fluoride in the water. It's the intellectual version of blaming your genetics. Now, I've never met a person like that who sleeps 8 hours, who walks every day in the sun, who basically does simple obvious shit. It's always a bullshit excuse. There's no such thing as a fat rationalist. It's just a person that's lying to himself and then lying to the world and coming up with complex theories. So assume that every fat person is a free rider on the medical system, and this is always and now the caveats. One of the caveats here, which everyone will jump to, is the 5-year-old with leukemia. You think you're so empathetic, you think you're so kind by bringing up the fact that 5-year-olds get leukemia. the fact that things exist out of your control. They do. But the fact that you didn't sleep 8 hours, the fact that you didn't go for a walk this today, isn't in the same category as a 5 year old getting leukemia. And you have to be a next level intellectual failure, a moral failure, if you ever put being fat and a 5 year old getting leukemia in the same category. You're disrespecting the 5 year old so much if you use that as your bargaining, if you use that to bargain with history, with reality. So, in this scenario, assume that there exist things out of your control. There exist car accidents. There exists a 5 year old getting leukemia. Those are things that are completely out of our control, and nobody debates that. The morality, however, comes through with the free rider of fat people, of the free rider of people that intentionally should be making better decisions that still don't make that. So that's a free rider. So, from a moralistic perspective, there's only one decision that actually works on how to have a socialized healthcare system. It's that the government incentivizes or disincentivizes certain behaviors, um, and there are consequences for it, which is if you don't walk an average of 5,000 steps for this week, you a certain number of healthcare costs go up in price. If you don't sleep 8 hours for a year, you basically lose access, your number of accesses to a medical clinic go down. That would be how things would work from an objective moralistic lens, because it's objectively true that the person's willing to do simple things like sleep every day, walk every day, go to the gym, stop eating, put their phone in a different room 30 minutes before bed, so they obviously sleep better. None of these things are up to debate. The people that convince you that it's complicated are always lying and are full of shit. Um, it's simple. Just walk in the sun every day, and realize that there's no such thing as fat smart people, and that they are basically lying to themselves, or they are smart but they're not doing the actions, which is the same as not being that smart. So in this world, the objectively moral thing is that the government incentives control people. And here's the thing, that's a very shitty fucking world. I don't want to live in that world. I'm pretty sure you don't want to live in that world. I'm pretty sure we don't want any of our friends to live in that world. We don't want to live in a world where the government is telling people if they should go to the gym or not. I want to live in a world where the government checks if people walk or not. That should not be the world we live in. But it's the only way to prevent free rider um, in the in a socialized healthcare system. There's a third option over here. It's not the lying about the morality, and it's not about lying about if, and it's not about not having socialized healthcare or stuff like that. Here's the third solution. Societies throughout history doesn't mind a certain percent of free riders. I think there's a study from many years ago which is revolts only happen when the taxation and almost unnecessary taxation is above 10 to 15%. Um, the, and I've this with my friends too. Like, I have many friends who move, who have the freedom to live anywhere in the world. Almost none of them choose to live in Dubai or zero tax places. Many people are fine moving to a place where they pay 10 to 20 to even 25%, and they don't care, because it's the last 10% isn't worth it. So think of free riders as that last 10% of tax. Most of society won't optimize it. So the solution then is to think of it as a society should get rich enough that we don't care that people are free riding. That is the solution. But the morality plays a role on why that's failing in modern society. So modern society has, you probably during half of this video, you probably said, Jeremy, you're being mean. You're not supposed to use the word fat shaming. You're supposed to act like people aren't full of shit when they don't walk and they don't sleep and they eat shit. No, thank you. They're full of shit. So that world, you're supposed to be kind and empathetic and accommodate their bullshit. That world is the world where you give an inch, where you compromise your perspectives for people, for society. And that's a world where if you give an inch and if you act like these things out of people control, what you end up is you end up in a world where you basically have people in charge of energy policy that don't know the word energy density. You have people in charge of energy policy who watched The Simpsons and thinks that uranium is green and glows. You end up in a system where people that can't do maths are at the table when it comes to energy policy on economic policy, where the feelings of how people feel about a solar farm is the difference between if a project gets funded or not. That's a society where because you bend the rules, because you act like these things are not obvious, you give you give false ideas a pass, and because you compromise and give false ideas a pass, you end up in a world where europe has to like Europe has an energy policy in the 21st century where people are arguing about who got a refund from their government on energy more. What kind of goddamn backward world do you have to be where you're arguing about the price of electricity in the 21st century? It's so, and that's a world where you basically end up if you let people who don't know maths be in charge of energy policy. And it's the same world you end up with in health. So you can't have. This is why almost every socialized healthcare system is it's not working today because what's basically happened is we gave an inch. People gave an inch often because it allows them to not improve things. Which is if we tell each other that you don't actually have to exercise, it's not necessary. Hey, gym versus yoga, let's actually take that debate seriously instead of telling people to do both gym and yoga. Let's actually act like there's no sleep deprivation crisis when there's news articles about how people are sleep deprived from 1990 before social media existed. It's a sleep deprivation crisis. It's obvious. Um, and in this world, because we act like these things are not obvious, we act like other things are not obvious. And then you basically give an inch in every part of society to accommodate people's feelings even when they are full of shit. And that's a world where you don't have the excess resources. And that's a world where people are back arguing about socialized healthcare from because there is not enough money. So a society that gives an inch on morality or on the fact of if fat people are a free rider to healthcare system or not is a society that doesn't end up with socialized healthcare because there are no excess resources. It's that simple. The morality is the foundation on if we can actually build a system. And if we change the morality because we want to accommodate the normally smart people who aren't sleeping 8 hours, we want to accommodate the normally smart people who aren't going for a walk, we basically fail at everything else in society. We need the way to reverse this is what we're having right now. It's not to create the bullshit society that I don't want to live in, that you don't want to live in, where the government tracks everything. It's factually, objectively true. But the only way out, where everyone actually gets what they want, is by not giving an inch on the morality first, by not acting like these things are complicated, and then growing, and then building. Morality first, then build. Now, this is just a simplified version of how I think on socialized healthcare right now. And this is just a test video because I wanted to get into the habit of producing content because I haven't done a podcast in nearly in half a decade. So it's been a while since I've yapped on camera. So if you want me to talk about any specific topic, let me know in the replies below, and hope to do a lot more videos over the next month.